Wow.
Is
And
it
then
like-
you guys gotta demo that.
Great.
whole
That's
thing.
right.
We just got our
Smith?
demolition inspection done.
That's perfect.
So
So
good to
expect
demo.
to take some.
I think, yeah,
Is that you, Greg?
we're gonna get the office out relatively soon, real soon.
There's Greg right
And then
there.
we're also waiting for there to be this stuff out. We'll do it this fall.
There's Greg.
Cool. That's exciting.
Super excited.
Hi, Greg.
Seems like the word is out, you know how it is in Kearney County, when the word starts to travel with this. At one point today, we had 9 people. They were in the office, like, doesn't do things. We went ahead and room for 9 people, now we do, so there were 9 people. It was exciting.
All right, we're running.
So where the building was. Stuff like that, or so.
If this kicks out,
It goes on dates.
I don't remember if this computer was doing that or not, but if this kicks out, just have to go into the gear. I mean, as far as up there anyway, it'll still record, everything will still be going. But you just go into that gear and then you'll have to,
People from this, I would say, dates.
Like, cool.
We
have
had
the
a
wireless display and then just select this wire,
third party, they do an evaluation.
select this one right here, the court projector. If it kicks out.
On sales that we have and.
Hopefully. You'll know these.
Oh, yeah.
Whoa.
I just started that, help you, but it didn't let you print it out. Thank you. Could see what your conversation.
So. We'll probably do what it'll be is it'll be like card lock slash credit card type.
No, this is the.
How's your
Help with the
e-charging
details
station?
later.
Is it great?
It will, this is a lot of labor.
Up and around.
Great.
Okay, it's 3:03, so we'll go ahead and start our work session with the County Court and Fair Board. Thank you for those in attendance. Really, I'll kick it to Lindsay and let her
Okay,
run with the update.
well, I didn't know if we wanted to start with the E4 classification. If we want to start there or.
Yeah, we could do that. That was a discussion that we
That needs to get,
had.
yeah, and then I thought we would run into the building and the contract since they kind of go together.
Okay.
That work.
So as we mentioned a couple county courts ago, we were investigating whether we could make this structure E4 rated structure, which allows it to be occupied after an event, seismic event.
Okay.
So we had the contractors that we're working with run some analysis for that of what additional costs that would be. We did look into any grant availability for that, and unless you have public safety personnel in the building itself occupying it, there wasn't much for grants around that. Or if it was a renovation to a building, there was grants for that. But for a new construction that didn't house public safety personnel, there wasn't any options for pursuing a direct grant.
Okay.
But what they did say is that it would cost somewhere between 200 to 300,000 to upgrade it to that status, and so they wanted the county to consider that. That isn't within our current budget, obviously, with the grant funds we've received for this project to do it, with the state funds that we've received, and so that would be a consideration of the court, whether that would be something that they would want to have within the county, a structure that meets that rating. In the work that Melinda Todd did in trying to research whether there was any E4 structures regionally,
something
there
to-
wasn't very many.
Is something for Courtney Crowell or others to advise us on?
And, you know, it's
Or
one of
not.
those, I haven't visited with Courtney directly on it. I have visited with Mark about it. I said, you know, something to think about, in the long session would be, you know, there's these grants for renovations, but what about within your district? How few E4 rated structures do you have? I mean, his district encompasses, you know, a third of the state. And if you have no buildings after seismic event within your district, you know, there's a couple firehouses that have been renovated, things like that, because they qualify under the renovation and public safety piece. But there's really very few out there that are rated to that. And so it's just a little heavier steel. It's a little, more, you know, cement bolting that goes into the project. It doesn't take away from the internal structure. If you do it on the front end, if you do a renovation, that's where Mr. Frank had said that the school district had turned it down for Slater School because with the cables and stuff they'd have to run to make it a renovation, that it would actually preclude some of the uses within their buildings. And so they chose not to pursue it in the end. And so doing it on the front end of a project prevents you from having to have any space restricted to bring it up to that standard. And so
And then
that's the
was-
update on,
Wasn't it extremely like,
He's,
it's preliminary to look at a retrofit after the fact was like twice the amount of money, wasn't it?
no, he said it was well over $1 million if
Oh,
you were
so-
gonna retrofit it.
Yeah, to
to
So it'd be like
retrofit size
75% more than if you did it.
On the front end. So that was ridiculously expensive to retrofit.
and so that's what we found out on that, you know, which was an update. I just said that we pursue with this to get information to the court. We can,
So a lot more information than we had before. so-
once, you know, Bill can listen into this and stuff, we can have further discussion on that, whether we would feel like that would be a good cause for the county to invest in or not. And then,
I think that was it for.
yeah, that was the E4 piece.
The second piece is looking at the size of our building footprint and some modifications that would have to go on the grounds. So I can give you a visual and Bill wants one of those. We had these at our meeting the other night.
You could provide one to Holly. We'll just give Bill a pile.
So if you take a peek at our building.
Is there any way Greg can see something?
Does Greg have this?
I don't know.
I'm okay. I know exactly, I can visualize exactly what we're talking about.
And he very well may have this when I sent it out.
I can add this to the agenda at the end too, so use it as a reference.
Okay, well, I don't know if we want that there yet. And so I think we probably want to have decisions made before we put this out, just like us. So the building in this footprint, so when it was first looked at by,
Overland.
yeah, thanks, I get 'em every time, by Overland. So they had given a 30-foot cushion space around the outside of the building, which is typical for building codes for all buildings except for the size and class of the building that we're putting in. So, without having any consultation with the building inspections, the engineer said, 60 feet with 5-star is what's typical for these buildings. Now, when you put the 60-foot in there, we had to shift the building a little bit to miss the orange grandstand area up there. But as you'll see, then that 60-foot overlaps into the memorial building. And then the barn is not a big deal. It needs to come down anyways because it's not safe. But we have a few options with that.
She's referencing.
So with that, there's a couple different things they can look at for permitting, so they can try and permit, like, if the memorial building were to stay, they can try and permit that as one building, even though it's 2 separate buildings. There's not a lot of space in between them.
About 8 feet.
It was about 8 feet, I believe. It was pretty skinny in there.
What would be the two things that would be considered one?
The memorial building and the new building.
And the, okay.
So that could be possible. Another possibility is simply taking the memorial building down. And then they were proposing to give us 15 more feet in the concourse to make the space, which is turquoise. So that's the
So the
concreted
additional
space.
blue would be what they'd be supposed to add to make up for any, space that we would lose from that.
And really, they're looking right now, making the floor plan. They have our memorial building floor plan. They know how much square footage is that open space. So their goal is to have that and more, to replace and improve the square footage from the memorial building. And then, what was option 3?
Taking down the memorial
Taking down the
building
memorial
and
building.
putting it up
Putting it
somewhere
back
else on the.
up.
Would it go as one
An option.
structure, and could we also apply for some kind of, exemption that was?
Possibility, we don't know. if it'd be
We don't know.
Yeah, there's options there, but I mean, at the end of the day. we're
Is there
still-
any exemption possible for the 60-foot fence?
That's the,
That's, they can
That's what you're
apply
talking
for
about?
the
That's what
exemption.
we're talking.
Yeah.
And, but we can't proceed that, with that until we have the contract signed and we can engage with.
The site plan review team.
Yes, so we're struggling, it's the fluidity of it.
And the other thing that they mentioned, with buildings within proximity of that, if it's, below that 60 is, tends to be the regulation is that you then have to create an extra firewall on that. And so that firewall is not cheap to do. And so that would be, even if they were to give you that exception, they may still require additional firewall to be installed to have it all up to code.
And,
So,
and when we think about, when we had this discussion at the fair board meeting, when we think about the types of things that need to happen to bring the memorial building up to speed, the floor is dangerous, and so we've looked at the amount that would cost to fix the floor. It is not having the AC, it's got an inefficient heating system, the kitchen is outdated, and so when you look at the.
You can't even get parts for the current kitchen.
So when we look at gaining the same footprint of space with the new building, you know, there's a lot of benefits to that. But once again, we can't really go too much further until we get our contract signed with Five Star Builders.
And how do we guesstimate some of the additional costs that all this would involve even before we get the contract? Because
Well, see,
as you know, we don't have.
that's the cool part about our contract is it's a design build. So that's the really cool part about our contract is that it's for a design build. So it's all things that can be open for discussion and.
Prioritize.
Prioritize.
And still within the
format.
budget, including the memorial building aspects that we are gonna have to figure out.
right,
Because
well, we'll
that
have
would
to make a
be-
decision on what we want to do, because each option is going to cost differently.
Yeah.
So some of, some of our thoughts, if the memorial building needs to be taken down. If we can't afford to put it back up, we can sell the building. Another group that's interested in the fairgrounds can pay for the erection of that, say like the livestock club. I'm not saying that they're volunteering to do that.
Or even the road department, if they needed a new
Right.
structure to be repurposed. So there is certainly a good shell of a building, and so. What we lack is the funding to be able to tear it down and re-erect it, but
If it were to become part of the new building, I mean, what does that mean? That they,
Well, it would just be in proximity, so it'd be a very narrow spacing between the two. If we
Okay.
could get them to allow for that type of exclusion, but that's when the additional firewall would have to be
and
installed.
the firewall would be just from where the two intersect,
Or as far as I would understand, it'd be on that side,
The whole thing, I would
but
imagine.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, it could have to be the whole thing. And so that was, like say, until you can get it to the site plan review stage, these are things that we know we're intersecting with on the project. that can't get a definitive until we're to that stage, but they're flagging it as things that we're gonna have to work through. The other thing budgetarily that, you know, I've kind of considered is currently the maintenance for that building and the heating alone. The heating alone is almost $900 a month. The memorial building.
When we're
So-
running that for weekends, you know, a month in the winter, it is ridiculous. It is $900 to $1,100 a month.
And now that the new structure wouldn't have the capacity to satisfy the same,
It
It would
would,
be that and larger,
It would be better
yeah.
in my.
and heated and cooled is the plan.
Exactly.
We would have to make, if the removal of the memorial building was the option that we chose, then we would have to make sure as we design our new building, that we made sure that the uses that the memorial building took place, those same uses could happen in the new building. And so that would be part of the,
At a larger club.
at a larger capacity, at a more efficient rate. So, you know, there's some real benefits to doing it that way. I think, you know, those are all options that have to be weighed, and I think Commissioner Shellman said it right. These are things that are flagged that we know are gonna have to be hurdles that we cross. And so it's just something that we want to make sure everyone's aware of, so.
And we were hoping to show you the preliminary drawings. We have, Palm has those. So, he was coming, because they're a big drawing, but I'll give you just a quick and dirty version of it. So this concourse area here, it has restrooms on both ends,
Okay.
but then it has capacity to put in a large conference room that would be the same capacity as your memorial building within this new concourse area. This is a solid wall between the arena, and so you don't have dirt and, you know, other things. That has an entrance into the grandstands.
very good.
And then this also becomes, behind the grandstand area, becomes storage for the facility that we don't have facility wide. So both sides of this become storage. You have an office space, and then you also have washer dryer area to do laundry, like from the kitchen and stuff that comes out, and other things. And so you build quite a few amenities into here that are what you
Outdated and
have
missing.
within that, only better and updated, and then you aren't paying for treatment bills, essentially could be the possibility, which budgetarily I could see as a big benefit to us if you're not heating this space and the memorial building due to its. I mean, I can't imagine very many people wanting to not rent this new space that's being built versus the old space for the same type of events. Only you can do this much more efficiently.
Thank you.
So that's, you know, kind of that
It really,
consideration.
it really keeps the new building being far more multifunctional.
Yes. Greg, do you have any, just reaction or thoughts to what you're overhearing?
Oh.
You're muted?
For some reason, we don't have volume on you.
Oh,
Oh, sorry, that was me. That was my bad. I would share you first off, everything I've heard, I would concur with. I think Commissioner Shellman and the team have done a very, very good job of trying to think through the issues that we're going to be facing. I do have a couple thoughts on the contracts as they're provided, but I can provide those in writing to the county commission later this afternoon or tomorrow. I don't want to take away from today's meeting. And I also do not want to slow up the contracts, as I know that's an issue that is on everyone's mind. But I do have just a couple thoughts to the benefit of the county on those items.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tell me one more time quickly the three options now that I understand them. I can just quickly write them down.
So they would be able to possibly apply for permitting for them as one building, even though they remain two separate buildings, but their proximity would allow for that permitting. So that's an option one. Option two, the memorial building goes down. And then option three, we would be able to put it up somewhere else.
I would like to say the memorial building becomes repurposed.
Repurposed.
Yes.
That's a good word.
Because took down sounds like we wouldn't want anything done with it, but I think repurposed just means it's a good building. It's just unfortunately for
In
the
the wrong
overall,
spot.
for the overall plan, you know, and this goes back to the original plans and the studies and the option C that was chosen on the overall improvements of the fairgrounds. This all falls into that same program of making the improvements that were based on the study that was done, you know, 6-7 years ago. So it all falls into the same group of thought, the same plan that was set forth a long time ago. So I really think the right word to say is that building is repurpose.
You're talking about for option 2, scratch out goes down.
Repurposed.
Okay,
But
thank
it
you.
can, you know, like, that's where it'd be decided, where the county would want to repurpose that. Would it be within the grounds, or would it be for some other county purpose, or would it be sold to a party that would want to purchase it?
Yeah. And, you know, we've discussed options, like I said, you know, is that something that the county road department would find beneficial? Is that something that, the livestock, committee, now that they're on entity, is this something that they would like to spend their funds on, having this new show barn or livestock structure? Those are all options. So I think there's lots of options to go over when we think about, you know, the feasibility of what we do with it. So,
Thank you.
Is that a storage type area or is it like a finished building?
It's a
It's a
finished
finished
building, so it currently, I mean, they currently have weddings, you know, there's been fundraisers, there, you know, there. It's a really
Everything.
multi-purpose.
Dangerous roller skating.
Yes.
You can only go one direction.
Like when we fall off those jumping mountains, yeah. On the concrete.
Yeah, I'm sure that they're gonna like the new concourse much better for rollers.
Oh, yeah.
They'll get a roller
Right.
derby in there.
Well, I mean, for me, and I wish I'd taken more video and pictures of it, but we were just down in Fallon, and as far as I can tell, it's basically the same deal, and it's amazing. I mean, their facility, and they just put it up in during COVID, and it's booming. I mean, they're booked and busy down there, and it's really freaking nice. I mean, the amount of events that they hold now, I mean, they've been able to turn their grounds around like the complete 180. It's a big deal. I mean, there were people from all over the country that came down to that event. So we can do that kind of stuff here as soon as we can.
Great, Pat was scouting for us.
You never walk into a fairgrounds in the same.
Oh,
same
never, I
frame of mind.
photograph
ever.
everything, for ideas and talk to people like, what would you do different? What did you like? How do, you know, what did you learn? It's quite the education.
Yeah.
And so they're working on that right now, on that interior design to maximize open space and to keep, you know, keep the conference space that we had initially asked for and to, you know, keep our wishes as well as accommodate more than one. I think we would probably hear back on that tomorrow, maybe. So maybe tomorrow, which, by the way, the grounds walkthrough is off. They're not gonna be here tomorrow.
Oh, that's three, they're not, okay.
Yeah, because Clint's plane from Alaska did not come in. Or did not take off on time.
As long as he's gonna make it back.
They'll make it back, just not on time.
Well, I think that's it. Go ahead, sorry.
If you're going to redo the memorial building in another space, please have the kitchen designed by a woman instead of an idiot man who's drunk.
Amen.
Secondly, if you are in the memorial building kitchen right now, the west wall has no plug-ins, and that's where all your counters are. So please have that
Plug-ins
person
from
have a front plug-in where the working counter is.
And
And thirdly, the caterers, when I was there, asked for an ice machine. Somebody thought it was well to take it out.
There used to be one.
There supposedly was one. So an ice machine is physically in the kitchen area would be nice. That's just things that people told me when I was there. And the back wall, no, Plug-ins is absolutely done by the wrong thing.
But I think, you know, if the building is repurposed, I think the vision of it to be repurposed is the kitchen and those facilities would be able to be new in the new facility. And it would be repurposed with the shell as being something different.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just saying,
When you.
really, that kitchen there is not useful for anybody.
It's not.
That's kind of what some of our discussion was on when we said like, you know, when we start weighing the options of what makes best. We had some of the same discussion that it's really only used as a prep
Warming
area.
area.
As a warming area because it's not set up to really function well as a kitchen, so.
No, and they try to use it as one. And the different caterers that come in for different events all have the similar kind of comments. So
Yeah.
it's just,
And
it's unworkable completely.
and that really goes back to, you know, the fair board has to be able to market what we have as something that it has to be marketable, you know, so. You know, if the dealership only has old jalopies on it, you don't sell BMWs, you know, so like.
Oh, they try.
But being able to have something that's marketable is what's really important, you know, and so.
Yeah, for events that are looking for a better kitchen space
Oh,
and
yeah.
functionality, you're not going to attract those to our current facility.
Yeah,
And in 2017, the bid to repair the floor was $100,000.
Yeah, I couldn't believe, because we've had a bid done in the last several
We
years.
had it updated, yeah.
I was shocked at the cost.
Those are ridiculous.
To try to.
That
rebuild
doesn't count
floor.
like insulation, door fitting, I mean, like any of that will make it better. I mean, you could be into that thing, $300,000, half million, easy, it was easy.
Yeah.
Easy.
And
Depending on.
if you go through the pictures of them building that building, you see they didn't add any usable fill to the bottom. They just graded what was there. And that area is is not anything that's got gravel or anything else. It's all just dirt.
That's all the cracking down on the
Yeah, it's all cracked.
Yeah,
Nothing
the
underneath
proper
the support.
base was not put under it, during original construction.
You notice the addition is good at 20 feet, because if you see those pictures, they added rock in there, they added
And the concrete
rebar,
stayed.
they added things that you need to have under concrete. But the first one,
Except for it went over a water line.
yes, it's just, you're sitting in a marsh, and so you don't add anything that's,
Yeah, it's just.
But it,
Yeah.
it also, coming back to, with the position of the memorial building currently, we were going to have to invest in a major, adjustment to that sewer and septic and water lines. That cost would no longer be included if that building was no longer there. You wouldn't have to be rerouting and redoing all those lines. You would just be putting in the new lines to the new building. And so there is a cost there that is associated with the current placement of the memorial building next to it. Because right now the septic line runs underneath that direction and you're gonna have to reroute.
Well, I don't want to get ahead of things, but just if it were repurposed, slightly relocated, are there enough sewer water lines to provide some options for that? When you say repurposed, are you talking?
Ideally,
It
it would not
depends.
have to house sewer.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Say that out loud.
You wouldn't be proposing a bathroom and kitchen in it with the repurpose if that.
What are the restrooms that are being proposed in the new structure? What are the level of restrooms, quantity, what are we looking at? Because
We
that
have
can get,
2 finished, I think, and we were planning for 4.
okay,
I think is, this is one of the budget give and takes.
The
We want to make
phases
sure,
that would have to
and
be-
we want to make sure that this is one of the things in which we had 2 finished bathrooms, but maybe we had the infrastructure for 2 more at a later point in time. So that's all part of that design to make sure that maybe we don't have the budget for 4 finished bathrooms, but we have the budget for 2 and the infrastructure for 2 more at a later point. So that as we look at expanding and making the building more attractive, for events and being more purposeful, that as more funds become available, that the infrastructure is already in place. So those retrofits, we'll call them, are very cost effective.
And both of the proposed restroom facilities are equal to, if not more than what the current Memorial Building gives you, and you have one on each end in the concourse area.
So one. Usable.
So could you summarize?
This is great. Can I jump in?
Yeah, go
Yeah, go right ahead, Greg.
Awesome. Again, I think this is really, really productive conversation. I'm looking at the working draft of the agreement between the county and the design builder. And a couple of the thoughts that I would just might throw out as ideas is making sure we're very clear that we are expecting a 30% design, then a 90% design, then a final 100% design prior to construction. With the county fair board and the county signing off on the 30%, 90% and 100% prior to construction. And the reason I raised that issue right now is based upon some of the conversation we're having. I would also encourage us to put in the agreement that there's a design team that's agreed to by the county court and the county with 5-star builders. And let me tell you where I'm going with that. Let's just use the kitchen as an example. I know what I like in a kitchen, and someone else may know what they like in a kitchen. But I would contend there may be 1 or 2 genuine experts in the county who have worked in commercial kitchens, who would know what the ideal layout could be. And we would want to have them as part of the committee. And then again, I'm sure with the county fair folks, there's plenty of experts on what the animal, or layouts to accommodate animals or people or what have you may look like. But we also want to make sure that's in compliance with the Oregon Department of Agriculture, in compliance with food handlers, et cetera. And again, I'm not an expert in any way, but by having a team as part of the group that overlooks the 30, 90, and 100% design layout, we bring those different expertises into play. So just a thought on that, that all of us don't have to be 100% the expert if we create a team of bringing folks in with different expertises as part of the group. So just a thought.
Thank you.
No, and
Thanks, Greg.
that's right in line with what we've actually kind of compiled a little list of folks that we know of here locally on the kitchen side that Lindsay has compiled, so that when we're ready to have that conversation,
We can make our contact.
that we can make our contacts. So I think you're right on cue with what we were thinking as well that way. Which, because these are hopefully the folks that'll be interested in also utilizing it. And so if they have some buy-in with some of that.
Into what eventually is there, it's the benefit, yeah.
Yeah, it makes it more attractive because they, have confidence that when they come in there to utilize that kitchen space, that it's gonna work for the events that they put on. And so I think that kind of local.
And they
buy-in
become your
is
best sales
useful.
folks.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
seriously, that's kind of the hope is that they would be like, you know what, when there are events, instead of, I don't want to cater that event, they'd be, much more interested in participating, because we do have folks that, due to that, will just bring in food more in that heating thing, that aren't interested in trying to prepare food there.
Yeah, I think you folks are doing an excellent job.
Hey Greg, I have a question that would fall under your expertise a little bit. It seems to me that getting the contract signed, we've gone through the process to be able to properly select a qualified, construction team. But it seems like, we're months, it seems like, into getting a signed contract. The timeline is very important for this project to be able to be starting after this fair, and that's coming up. And depending on how our weather and our winter is, the sooner that we can get to work, it reaches our goals. And so we're really making this more difficult for our contractor the longer that this gets played out. What should we typically see on a time frame and be able to come in a consensus between the county and 5-star, be able to have a contract that they both agree on and sign? We've gone
Yep.
to and hired our own legal counsel, that's an expert in design. And they have, put forth, the contracts, and have been in conversation, but it seems like we get a lot of back and forth and we're keeping to make adjustments and adjustments and adjustments. And I just wonder, you're familiar with this, when we reach a point which we can really start moving forward. I feel like our hands are a little bit tied right now.
Now, that's an excellent question. Without any derogatory intent towards attorneys, attorneys' jobs are to think about everything that possibly could go wrong. I would contend, maybe even overthink that. Really what I would suggest is we get the county fair board, we get a 5-star, get a couple of the rest of us, and we sit down in a room, and over 2-3 hours, we hammer out what the deliverables have to be, because I'm looking at the draft right here in front of me. Hammer those out, put timelines on them, assign a percentage of the budget not to exceed, have a very good buffer in terms of a retainage, and we just get this thing done and get it brought to the county court for final concurrence, signed, and move forward. If you read the language within the contract, there's plenty of opportunity for the county and for the fair board to back out if they need to, or to push pause if they need to. And sometimes you just overthink these things. And so, if I had a suggestion based on your question, let's pick a day here in very short order, get us all around the table. Let's finalize the objectives, the timeline, budget associated with those, and get it back to the court for final concurrence.
Thank you, Greg. Yeah, that sounds like a great plan.
That's my take. I can
Yeah.
share with you, county commissioners, on the jail project. I've been working on the RFQ, and I've just been putting all those in place, knowing we'll have to make some adjustments, but rather than trying to overthink it, let's just put them in there and we'll adjust. Because it is a design build, we will adjust as we go forward. We just have to be careful that we never exceed budget.
Yeah.
That's my take, gang.
Yeah.
So one thing, and I don't know when the right time to bring this up in all of this, like when it comes to the actual finish of it and the work, the color, those kind of things. My thought was when he was talking about bringing the experts, there are some people in this community that have a gift for presentation on that kind of stuff, and maybe include them in some of those conversations so that it has that it factor when you walk in. So that it's not just a function, but also the events are about presentation as well as the function of it. And I don't remember any
That's a
conversation,
good idea.
where we discussed, color and things.
I know I have been banned from ever picking out paint colors. That's my life, my husband for exterior things.
Yeah, well, and that's just one of those things. I don't know, it's it is what it is. But there's a project that we're a part of that I think it would have turned out better if the right people were listened to, because some of the things that came out, the people that made the decisions didn't have, I guess, the eye for detail for certain things. And so the point of the project was greatly diminished because it just doesn't transfer at all. And I'm not an expert on that by any means, but from the artistic standpoint, having somebody that does know, it can add or detract a lot. So I don't know when the right time to bring that up is either, but just.
Well, and that's, your initial steps are the site plan review,
Yeah.
getting that, footprint nailed down and agreed upon, format of that. And then, as you're looking at those details, that's when that project team on the construction side would say, we need those decisions made by X date. And then we would know our timeline for providing that information back to them.
Yeah.
But they are very efficient at communicating that. I've been very impressed with our communication with them thus far. The detail of, questions that they've had for us. They give us lots of homework every time we meet with them.
Cool.
So definitely you do need, people that that's their thing.
Yeah.
You know, we all have things that we're good at.
Yeah.
And just kind of like the kitchen piece, I think the exterior falls into the same category as having a,
Well, I would
group of folks that
exterior and
that's what
interior.
their thing is that eye appeal part. Which is not my thing. so.
I know people that are good for that, but I.
Yeah, there are people that can, it makes a big difference.
My house looks the same after 20 years.
I decorated my own office and my wife came in and I said, what do you think? And she goes, definitely decorated by a man, so.
Keep the door closed. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna, not to interrupt you, but one of the things that I just wanted to bring up to the county court that is maybe a little bit putting the cart before the horse, but as we look to the future and the goals of the fair board, the support that we would need from the county would be to have the people and employees in place and a pay scale which allows us to be able to hire the right amount of people. So currently, Lindsay has really been a one-woman show, which historically has been all that the fair has ever had. And so our goals are lofty, but that's gonna take more boots on the ground. And so as we look forward, I want to just make sure that we're thinking ahead so that as this building becomes and we start renting it out, we're able to generate income. We're gonna need people in place before that happens, and we don't have a pay scale and which allows us to be able to hire qualified people. You know, we had some applicants that applied for the caretaker position, and one gentleman was highly qualified. But the pay scale was too low for him to be able to provide for his family and live here. And so, you know, he didn't take the position. We were able to fill it with, a very young, nice gentleman. But nothing against him, but his skill level is not the same spot. But as we move forward and we think about event planning and continuing to try to get more grants and funding, and we think of operations and maintenance, you know, all those things are gonna take more than just Lindsay can do. And so I just wanna make sure that we're thinking ahead as we, look into the budgeting for next year and things that we're making sure that, we're making sure that our egg basket's full of eggs, because even though we have a really nice building, it will fail if we don't have enough people in place to run it appropriately. So, and I say that from coming from a business that has grown a lot, and in order for that business to grow, you have to have more people. And as you get more people, it will continue to grow. It works. If you get more people, you will get more business. And I, approaching the new structure as a business by making sure we're thinking of it as a business and what we're gonna need to make all the wheels turn. That's gonna take extra support from the county to make sure we can have those people in place.
Well, and as we were earlier talking with the library, all of the economic challenges that are coming in, this is something that can move the needle in a way that few things, because if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the statistics that I've read on the conservative side is for every dollar that the fairgrounds generates in revenue, it's $5 to $7, isn't it, for the community? That's a pretty dang good investment when you can get those kind of rates of return. And if we can increase the usage, like they're in Fallon, like I said, they're in a different position, but it at least shows what can happen. That opportunity opened up new opportunities that were bigger, and those successes created more. And I just think that it's one of those things that it's not a liability at that point, it's an asset. A liability takes money from your pocket, an asset puts it in your pocket. And this is something that literally puts money in the pockets of the biggest segment of our community. I don't know anything else like they can do what it can do. And so that's where I think what he's driving at is there's a lot of potential here. We just need the support to get it over that. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does make sense.
Cause I mean, those are real dollars that go into real pockets that stay here in Harney County that tend to come from outside. And when you look at Central Oregon, you look at the Treasure Valley, those are big pockets to pull from.
We're doing something similar with their building department, you know, I mean,
Contracting with other counties.
finding ways to grow and profit from it as well and help other areas as well. You know,
That's why we need a lodging tax.
It is.
It is, and that's something that would
Yes.
really help. I know it failed one other time, but,
Two.
but I think it needs to be sold in a different way, you know,
Agreed.
from my opinion, I mean.
You
I'm not
have
saying
to call it a
anyone needs to-
tax.
Yeah.
You could call it anything else.
Yeah.
It would pass.
Absolutely.
A lot of it's just the educational side of it. It's like,
Lodging investment.
yeah. But anyway, to me, I see the opportunities being huge. Because when you look at how many folks drove, from multiple states away to that event in Fallon, like, come on, Fallon's not exactly the most beautiful place in the planet. Like, they'll come here. They will.
And, something else to even look at that, kind of off subject, but we're talking about trying to increase revenue, the lodging investment or whatever, but, I don't know the exact details, but I believe Heinz passed their gas tax, which is, I think, 2 cents to a gallon. But if you drove between Heinz and Burns, the price is the same, but 2 cents a gallon on the amount of gallons is a lot of revenue. So, that's another way of looking at trying to capture people who, come to our community and, try to get an investment back to our community from some of those people. That's maybe another way to look at it too.
Well, that's the thing is with most of those, like the TLT tax, it's a tax on people that live somewhere else.
Well, and.
Here.
There's been a culture here, decades and decades to never raise our fees, never do these things. And it has hurt us in the long run in that everybody else, including our neighboring counties, didn't take that approach. And, so it's a paradigm shift, but it needs to be looked at and faced and considered and changed.
But pretty much every.
The
other
cost of
place
doing
that we
business
go-
is just as much here as anywhere else,
Yeah.
maybe more sometimes. And-
Well, sometimes we look at actually the cost of the business being more here because we look at freight and travel and, a lot of things like, along those terms. Fuel I can speak of, but, we have some of the highest prices here for fuel, but like, it gets trucked further than anywhere else to get here, and so that in turn makes that more expensive, so.
Yes, point
60
taken.
cents a gallon this weekend.
Yeah.
Difference between Burns and here.
I believe that the beginning of these meetings, such as the library hearing, is going to be the beginning of a much greater awareness in Harney County of our overall economy, our overall challenges, and the ways to address them. And so I think our community can come together on that. The more we have these conversations publicly, or where people can play it back if they don't go to these meetings, and when we're talking to one another.
Yes.
But of all of the county entities, I don't know any of them. I'm not saying I'm fully informed on it, but they can actually do the kind of aspect of the fairgrounds can be in the sense of generating new money into the community. That I think is a very distinct thing that should receive the additional value it deserves.
I'd like to see the airport, which is a city of Orange thing, but still we're all in this together,
Sure.
get stronger,
Yeah, no arguments there, but like this is definitely something that
can really.
yeah, and it's fairly fast too, in the sense of return on investment. It's a fairly big one.
So, we just haven't had a work session in a little while. We are,
No, thank you.
very, anxious. to
Well, I knew
get a
stuff was going, but I
contract
wanted
finished
to hear
and
about-
underway.
Well, it
Yeah,
doesn't feel like.
so-
Perfectly honest.
So we're gonna look at the comments that we get from the attorney, county council, Audrey.
Well,
Quickly.
she said
She said
that
something, I'll
the
look at it.
contract and exhibit B, from what I read, are ready. So,
Okay.
and that exhibit A could be signed after those first two documents. And so I sent that email to you.
And I haven't read it yet, but is there a lot to delve into on exhibit A, or just a couple things? I mean, is it just, is it a matter of just making a decision, or is there a lot to be cogitated on
Let me
for a while?
see if
I mean, can we-
she-
I also think
I
those are, not to interrupt you, but I think those are also recommendations.
Yeah,
Not
I,
necessarily, I think that's something to keep in consideration, that those are recommendations. So you could, as the county, and Greg can interrupt me at some point if I'm wrong, but the county could still sign it as is, but those are just the council's recommendations. And I think there's recommendations from the lawyer firm that we have hired then there's
That does-
recommendations from the county's council, and so somewhere in between there is where we have to be, but, I think that's an important aspect, that those are recommendations.
That was
The first,
pretty well
though,
covered what I was gonna
Okay.
say, cause like, just, you know, we did hire, Mike Chartrade to look at that, and he has done thousands of
Right.
construction documents, so I would be curious to see what his replies are to the red line comments, and I think we should
Consider.
consider those very heavily, because he's done many of these, and Audrey has told us that this is not her area of expertise, and she would have preferred, like they did do, that we go out for somebody, with somebody who.
It was under Audrey's recommendation, was one of our meetings that we had that, to
Outside
to
counsel.
find outside counsel that was more of an expertise in the field that we were looking at, and that's exactly what we did. Even knowing that it was gonna cost us some more money, but it once again kind of falls back to the timeline that we're really trying to fall into.
So when would you like us as a county court to either have another work session or have a special session to move forward on anything once we have time to look it over and
I
talk about
think as long as we could look it over, honestly, by the end of the week, I think we could pull back together if our schedules allow and get that main contract and exhibit B executed. And as she said, exhibit A with her recommendations that she's trying to talk to Mike about, don't need to be, let me see how she phrased that. It will not be executed until 5 Star submits its construction proposal. And so she said that the county can execute and proceed under the contract in exhibit B, because exhibit A is
I think,
a separate spot in the process.
so
But the main contract then allows,
design, permitting, pre-construction.
yeah, being
type
able to
work.
submit these things that we're sitting here getting held up on. And so that would give us all.
There's no risk to do that.
I mean.
No, I mean, she's saying she says that
Okay.
the main
Well, then let's do what we
contract and
can.
exhibit B are
Yeah.
ready.
We can work on amendment A.
But we didn't get this email from her until
Yeah, I haven't.
1:45 today, so.
Let's see if we can get some executable documents ready to go and from Mike. And get those of us and email them.
And Tom has done most of the legwork with making sure that 5 Star and Mike have worked through any of the questions
Good.
with it. And so all that legwork Tom has done on our behalf.
Okay.
And so what you see today are things that they have seen and have agreed
We
to.
have seen.
And so it's not something that 5 Star's gonna get and go, oh, wait a minute, this isn't quite what we
They'll be
thought.
ready.
Tom's worked through
Yeah.
that part of it for us already. And so, like I say, I just kudos to him for being part of this project team
I know.
because of the background work he's been able to do between Mike and 5 Star and getting things in order for us.
And his, I mean, I think we've said it before, but like Mike had, or, excuse me, Tom has, 30 years of experience in doing exactly what we're doing, so we can lean on him for a lot of his expertise, so.
Yeah, that's been one of those blessings that came our way, so.
Yes, it was. I'm gonna circle us back around to the E4.
Yes.
So, Mike and Clint were wanting,
Mike Sloop.
Mike Sloop, sorry.
Project team, there's two
Project
Mikes
team,
involved. in
not the
all
lawyer Mike. So 5 Star is looking for some direction as far as whether the county thinks that, that $200,000 and $300,000 chunk is gonna be a bit available from the county, since it's not in our budget, we know. I mean, I know that's a big ask and a big question, but it is one of those factors that's holding up ordering, design, those kinds of things. So he was hoping that could be answered by the end of the week.
I would like to hear more from Judge Hart as the budget officer, the daily thing, but my thought is probably not. And I
That
wonder
was my
how
thought, but
much
it
the
wasn't my
seismic
decision to
stuff is
make.
so important in the eastern side of the state. I mean, not to poo-poo it, I'm not, but how many seismic effects have hit eastern Oregon and are projected to?
Right.
I mean, it is an industry trying to grow. And, you know, there is influence in Salem to push things, et cetera. If it's super important, that may drive a different approach to the thought process, but we are broke. You know, I'm just saying, I don't know, you know.
Right.
But I'd like to hear from Judge Hart, who really has his finger on all the dollars and cents.
One of the chairman of the revenue committee or the Ways and Means is sitting right there. It's
He's
important.
aware of the conversation.
Yeah, trying not to be aware of the conversation. There should be maybe a $500,000 that he could figure out someplace.
Greg, do you have some knowledge and thoughts around protection, seismic protection for buildings out in eastern Oregon? How
You
important
know, I
that
wish
is?
Commissioner, I wish I had something profound to share, but you kind of hit it on the head. In Salem, we talk about it and we talk about it and we talk about it, but very little action occurs on that, and there's very few resources. So, no, I don't have anything to add. The one question I did have is payment to the contractor. Have you guys had an opportunity among the Fair Board to talk about what that process will look like for payment of invoices?
We did discuss that, with one of our initial meetings, because we wanted to make sure that was part of the conversation that we had. And I think we said that it would fall under the normal terms of the county's payment. And so, Tom would be able to, be, you know, the liaison that make sure to review that we're properly handling the payroll and that the BOLI funds are handled in the right way. And, you know, Tom has experience in making sure that you're only paying for actual receivables, you know, so to speak. Schedule values, you know, and so, Tom's very well versed in all of that. And so we did speak with that, and that did not seem to be a problem with Five Star Builders. They actually thought that it would be, when we brought the subject, they thought that maybe it was gonna be like a 60 or 90-day turnaround, and that didn't scare them away. But they were more than willing to do under the normal terms that the county already pays their bills.
Great. And then on just really quick question on the materials, are they going to front the purchase of those materials, or are they going to look to the county to do that?
They are going to be purchasing those materials. And that was one of the things, and some of the questions that were asked during the RFQ process was, you know, how much of their work is self-performed, availability. We had a lot of discussion on being remote, you know, living in Hardin County and making sure that we can still get the products to make sure that we build it and the personnel to build it too.
And the last thing I'd share on that, and this is commissioners, this is just me being overly cautious, and I admit that, is as you get wrapped up on the design portion of the design build, we'll probably want to have a little bit of a further conversation to make sure there's no construction liens placed on the county by suppliers. But that's not a big thing at all. Just can be taken care of in a 5-minute conversation. But quite often, suppliers will put liens on the owner of the project, not the builder. And so we just want to be careful on that. Yeah. But I do have to share with you, commissioners, I feel very, very good with this company. I've had a chance to personally meet them and visit with them. And holy smokes, I think your county fair board and Commissioner Shellman have done a great job, or they should buy a lottery ticket because they found a good one.
Yeah, we had a lot of discussions with them as far as payment, even with the amount of retention that was gonna happen. So, you know, for some of us, it was a learning process, but, you know, thankfully Tom knew a lot about how all that worked, but those were all discussions that we really had and we're on page with.
It's awesome. Awesome. So I didn't mean to interrupt commissioners. Apologize.
No, you're good. You know, that's important, you know, as we reach different, check marks in this process that we're, circling back around on anything, you know, of that nature. So good to flag that now.
And the seismic structural work, it is not required at this time in Oregon, correct?
No, not required. We just wanted to make
Just
sure
want to-
that the
I-
county court had made a decision on it. That's the main thing that we need at this juncture. Is because it would require a county contribution. The county court needs to give an official yes or no
Okay.
of that.
Okay.
And that could be done at the same time when we finalize the contract and move forward with
Are you
it.
thinking Friday or?
I have availability Friday.
I can do, well, I guess I don't need to sign this, but.
No.
We like,
You've already provided it for us.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll get you a clean copy that has draft.
well, I'll make myself available whenever the county court can get together for that purpose. You know,
Okay, we'll
do my
check
reading in
with
between.
Judge Hart once he gets out of his meetings and see what works, and then we'll get that posted out to our calendar.
And who ought to be there? Besides us.
Audrey, obviously. But anybody else that'd like to come, obviously.
Should lawyer Mike, I prefer to move lawyer.
Yeah,
Mike.
if he has availability.
He has
Call in.
availability.
And Tom,
And Tom,
I'll check and see what his availability is as well.
I think that Tom more than anyone, and once again, lawyer Mike, I think those are two. If there, that way, if the county had any questions, and as kind of as Greg, said, if everyone's in the same room, if there are something, maybe those could be hashed out and resolved right then and there, and then move forward with the signing, so.
Judge Hart has a meeting from 10 to 1 and then nothing after 1 o'clock
On Friday?
So maybe 2 o'clock?
I think that's it. Do you want me to put work session or special session?
Special session, because it will take official action.
Gang, would you mind if I join by Zoom?
Yes, that'd be awesome.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Greg, for joining.
And I appreciate Commissioner Shellman. I have to ask a personal question. Is my face bright red on the camera?
You look
It
like you've
looks
been
like I'm like
celebrating.
calling in from purgatory or something.
I don't know, I look really pale on the camera, I think, so we have two extremes going on.
I keep expecting like flames to come up behind me.
As long as you don't whip out a little,
Right, exactly. All right, see you again.
You didn't know.
take care.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Do I want to end it or leave moving?